It's still not clear why the police opened fire. Some evidence suggests a miner used a gun near an area known as Scene 1, and we saw it in that previous report. Officers killed 17 people there. Another 17 were shot several minutes later at Scene 2, nearly 500 meters away. Let's talk about this more with Mia Swatu. Wrote a story about a year ago saying that where's the compensation? It needs to happen now. Where's the retribution?
Right.
What's the status of that?
Well, of course, this remains an ongoing issue and a really burning issue. And as a lawyer, this to me is, you know, a really sort of an issue that needs to be discussed and really that there needs to be more anger about. The fact that 7 years later we haven't seen civil or criminal accountability to the extent that we need to see this, you know. The Marikana report, the Farlam report said that criminal accountability should follow. It recommended that. Yet there wasn't this follow-up. Last year, about 7 senior police officials appeared in the Rustenburg Magistrates Court. But these were not officials that were involved in the 16 August killing even. IPID referred 72 policemen to the, well, names. They gave 72 names of policemen to the National Prosecuting Authority, and that has also not been followed up on. And also on the question of apology, on the question of reparations, on all those crucial forms of remedying what has happened, we have not seen enough movement. What we have seen last year, sorry, I keep talking now, but
you've got lots to talk about. Go ahead.
Is that, you know, there was 100 million rand settlement by government. This, of course, is not adequate. The victims are saying, and the families of the victims are saying, that this is far from adequate. They want more than $1 billion. And there's also some dispute about whether this money should constitute full and final settlement or whether it's just, you know, one form of compensation. So there are many sort of unanswered, unresolved issues still.
Why do you think it's been so hard for the government and for those involved to admit that there was some wrongdoing in the police? I mean, I know once you admit it, then you are responsible, right? I totally get that. But how come they haven't been able to find a different avenue other than the sort of paltry payments to get some sort of closure?
Well, we know that this ultimately always boils down to political will. There was a will to set up a commission to make it look like we're doing something. Now, we know the Farlam Commission was more respected than most, but in my view, it was far too soft on the police. And there wasn't really any oversight over, you know, what happens after the commission makes its conclusions. I think that it's a lack of political will, and also that some people implicated were, of course, incredibly senior. We're talking about Cyril Ramaphosa himself, right? So even though he said at the State of the Nation address last year that this will enjoy priority, that Marikana, you know, it was our darkest hour, we're still not seeing the criminal prosecutions we need to see.
His involvement, I mean, that's still, there's no clarity there.
Exactly.
Okay, so, I mean, you know, where to from here now? What needs to be done? As you say, there needs to be political will. It seems to be lacking, though.
Right. So we see in this country that what does help is civil society action and pressure by civil society groups. We need to see civil society, the public getting involved, pushing for those prosecutions. We see very often when the victims are the poor, the marginalized, you know, there's not enough movement on these things. But I do believe that, you know, on a wide, the public very widely and broadly can get involved. Also because I think that this really goes to the heart of the credibility of the governing party. And, you know, if we are going to, you know, sort of present ourselves as a state that has the rule of law, that takes the rule of law seriously, and we do not prosecute the crimes committed in our darkest hour, it remains very serious, and it taints our reputation as a country.
And until we deal with it at the top, I mean, we're never going to know. I mean, there was bad behaviour on the union's part as well. We haven't even really got to that stage yet.
Yes, that's a very good point. And if you will allow me, academic colleague of mine, and her name is Ilva Rodney Gumede, and I are sort of, we've edited a book that will appear soon on exactly this topic of accountability and the wider implications, consequences, ongoing consequences of Marikana. I just think it's particularly shameful that the police minister now 7 years later says, oh, you know, deployment should have happened in this or that way, you know. It's 7 years, you know, surely we should have dealt with this immediately. So the books will be titled Marikana Unresolved, and this, I think, is an important theme, this unresolved nature of this national tragedy.
Because, you know, in all of these circumstances, it's the closure that's so desperately needed on all parties, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much.